Your senior dog is not just slowing down. They are showing you something about loss, about time, and about the parts of yourself you have never had to face before. Research on human-dog attachment finds that how owners respond to a dog's cognitive decline reveals more about their own psychology than any personality test. If you want to understand what your dog is really telling you, you are in the right place. You notice it first as a small thing. Your dog walks to the wrong side of the door, the hinge side instead of the handle side, and stands there waiting. Or they start barking at a corner of the room. Or they forget, mid-walk, where they were going. These are not random quirks. They are the early signatures of canine cognitive dysfunction syndrome, a neurological condition that researchers have confirmed is closely parallel to human Alzheimer's disease. The brain accumulates beta amyloid plaques, neurons lose their connections, the dog becomes confused in spaces they have known for years. A 2011 study by Salvin and colleagues found that over 14% of dogs older than 8 already showed measurable signs of this syndrome, and the majority of their owners had not mentioned a single behavioral change to their veterinarian. The decline was happening in full view, absorbed quietly into the daily rhythm of the household, noticed but not named. That silence is telling. It points not only to a dog changing, it points to an owner adapting, grieving, and making sense of something they were never given a language for. Here is where this stops being about the dog. The way you respond to your senior dog's cognitive decline is one of the most psychologically revealing behaviors a dog owner can exhibit. Do you research every symptom the night it appears? Do you avoid looking at it too directly, holding on to the version of your dog that existed 2 years ago? Do you become hypervigilant, overmanaging their environment, trying to compensate for every loss with new supplements, new routines, new controls? These are not just coping strategies, they are your attachment style made visible. Your relationship with uncertainty, your relationship with mortality. Researchers studying anticipatory grief, the grief that begins before a loss has occurred, have found that pet owners often begin this grief process years in advance of death, and that the intensity of anticipatory grief correlates strongly with the depth of the human-animal attachment bond. The dog is still alive. You are already mourning, and the way you manage that mourning, whether you collapse into it, deny it, fight it, or meet it with presence, tells a story about how you have always handled the things you could not control. Your dog did not create that story, they simply made it impossible to ignore. Number 1. The forgetting. Your dog forgets you have already fed them. They forget which room the water bowl is in. They forget a command they have known since puppyhood, and look at you with the particular kind of blankness that lands differently than confusion. It lands like absence. A 2018 study by Chapagain and colleagues at Eötvös Loránd University tested executive function and memory across dogs of different ages and found measurable, progressive decline in cognitive flexibility beginning as early as 6 to 7 years in some breeds. What the research also found is that owners who observed this forgetting but did not label it as disease tended to absorb the new reality through behavioral accommodation, feeding again, guiding more, repeating commands without frustration. That accommodation is a form of love. But it is also, for some owners, a mirror for how they respond to loss in other relationships, quietly adjusting to absence without ever naming what has changed. The dog forgets, the owner adapts, and neither one speaks the thing they both feel. Number 2. The night wandering. You wake at 2 in the morning to the sound of nails on the floor. Your dog is walking the hallway, not to go outside. They do not ask for the door, just walking, restless, unable to settle. This is one of the most common and distressing signs of canine cognitive dysfunction. Disrupted circadian rhythms, the biological clock that organizes sleep and waking, becoming decoupled from the actual cycle of night and day. Researchers studying sleep disruption in cognitively affected dogs found that this symptom, more than any other, was the one most likely to trigger owner distress. Not because the dog was in obvious pain, but because the owner was watching helplessness from a distance, unable to offer the thing that had always worked before. Presence, comfort, a hand on the dog's back. For anxiously attached owners, those who have always organized their sense of security partly around their dog's well-being, the night wandering lands as an identity disruption. The role of protector, which gave shape to the relationship, no longer functions. You cannot fix the wandering, You can only be there in it. That is a harder assignment than it sounds. If that just made you see your relationship with your pet in a completely different way, hit subscribe. We explore the science of the human-pet bond every week and what it reveals about us. All right, let us keep going. Number 3. The greeting that changed. There was a version of your dog who met you at the door every time. The ears up, the tail rotating, the full-body announcement of your arrival. And then one day, they did not come. You walked in, and your dog was in the other room, or they lifted their head and put it back down. Or they came slowly, tail low, as if uncertain who you were. For owners whose daily emotional landscape was partly organized around that greeting, and many of us quietly structure our days around that return, the loss of it is not trivial. It is a reorganization of the emotional contract. Research on the human-dog bond, including the oxytocin synchrony work published by Nagasawa and colleagues at Asabu University in Science in 2015, established that mutual gaze and greeting behavior between dogs and owners triggers reciprocal oxytocin release. When a cognitively declining dog no longer initiates that loop, the owner's nervous system registers the absence as real. You are not imagining the loss. Your biology confirmed the bond, and your biology now registers the signal missing. Number 4. The staring into nothing. You are sitting in the room. Your dog is also in the room, and your dog is staring at the wall. Not alertly, not the focused stare of a dog tracking a sound, a blank stare. Eyes open, but absent. This is a clinically recognized symptom of canine cognitive dysfunction, sometimes called stargazing, periods of apparent disconnection where the dog appears to be present in body, but not in mind. Owners describe this symptom as the most unsettling, and the research on grief responses in pet owners suggests why. It is not the dog's physical decline that hits hardest for most people. It is the moment they cannot recognize themselves in the dog's eyes. Attachment theory gives us language for this, the secure base. The dog was always a source of contingent response. They looked at you, responded to you, confirmed you. The stare into nothing interrupts that loop. Gonzalez-Martinez and colleagues documented this disconnection behavior as one of the earliest reliable clinical signs of cognitive decline. What you are experiencing in those moments is not overreaction. Number 5. The anxious Velcro phase. For some aging dogs, the cognitive decline does not produce distance. It produces its opposite. The dog who was once independent begins to follow you from room to room. They cannot be in a space without you. They press against your leg. They wake when you move. They watch the door with a new urgency that looks less like the eager loyalty of puppyhood and more like fear. What is happening neurologically is that the declining brain loses its ability to self-regulate, to use stored memory and spatial familiarity as anchors. You are the last reliable anchor. The owner becomes the dog's external nervous system. This dynamic has a deep mirror in human attachment psychology. Researchers studying anxious attachment in adults find the same pattern. When internal regulation fails, the attachment figure becomes the only container for dysregulation. For owners who already tend toward anxious attachment themselves, this phase is the most destabilizing, not because the dog is more needy, but because it perfectly matches and amplifies the owner's own fear, that the people and things I love are fragile, and I must hold them tightly or lose them. You did not teach your dog to be afraid, but in this phase, your nervous systems are running the same program. Number 6. The slowing body. This one is quieter than the others. It is not a dramatic behavioral change. It is an accumulation of small ones. Your dog gets up more slowly. The walk that used to take 20 minutes now takes 10. They choose the soft rug over the hardwood. They stop jumping. They stop racing you to the kitchen. They rest more, and you begin to quietly reorganize the world around the new limits. Lower the food bowl, carry them up the stairs, skip the park, and walk the block. Behavioral accommodation for a physically declining dog is one of the most studied areas of the human-animal bond, because it so precisely mirrors what family caregivers do for aging human relatives. The research finds that owners who accommodate a senior dog's physical decline without complaint or resentment, who meet the smaller version of their dog with the same quality of presence they offered the larger one, score significantly higher on measures of compassionate flexibility and grief tolerance. This is not a small thing. The way you meet your dog's body as it changes is the way you will meet change everywhere. Every small accommodation is a rehearsal for the hardest human skill, loving something that is already becoming something else. So what do you do with all of this? Here is what the research and the psychology actually point toward. The owners who navigate their dog's cognitive aging with the most resilience, who stay present without collapsing, who grieve without denial, are the ones who named what was happening, not diagnosed it clinically, named it emotionally. They said to themselves, and sometimes to someone else, "My dog is declining, and I am grieving," and both of those things are true at the same time. That naming does not fix the forgetting. It does not restore the greeting, but it does something more important. It separates your grief from your dog's experience. Your dog is not suffering from your grief. They are living, moment by moment, in whatever clarity and confusion they have. They still know warmth. They still recognize your voice, even when they cannot place your face. They still lean into your hand. What they need from you is not a partner in mourning. They need the secure base to keep functioning. And that means the work of this season is primarily yours. The question is not whether you can save your dog from aging. The question is whether you can be present to it, honestly, without armor, without pretending it is not happening. That kind of presence is not passive. There is a particular kind of love that only becomes possible at the end of something. Not despite the loss, because of it. When your dog stops meeting you at the door, you start going to them. When they forget the route, you walk it together more slowly. When they stare at nothing, you sit beside them in it. None of that is the relationship falling apart. That is the relationship becoming something it was never given the chance to be before. Unconditional, in the exact direction you always struggled with. Not the love that requires the other to perform. The love that shows up anyway. Your dog did not choose to age. They are simply living all the way to the edge of what they have. The fact that you are still here, still researching, still watching, still adjusting, that is not grief wearing love's clothing. That is love, and your dog, in whatever fog they are living in right now, still knows it. Thank you for investing your time with us today. Now that you know your response to your senior dog's cognitive decline reveals your own relationship with grief, loss, and the things you cannot control, we are curious. What is the change in your aging dog that has been hardest to accept, and what has it shown you about yourself? Let us know in the comments. New episodes drop every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you are subscribed to catch the next one. Until then, decode your dog, decode yourself.